Ashley with Budgets Made Easy and the Money Mindset Podcast. Recently, we've been talking a lot about doing your budget, how to stick to it, how to properly plan for it, tracking, like all of the things. But something that we have not really talked about that I want to dive into is having a miscellaneous category. What it is, why you need it, and why it is an essential part of your budget and your money plan. Now, before we dive into that, I do want to remind you that you can get your free budget starter kit at budgetsmadeeasy.com/start so that you don't have to guess how to get started. You can print it out. There's a checklist, there's monthly budget categories to remember that people typically forget. And that's where a lot of the trouble comes from with sticking to your budget. So there is a list for every single month, plus a step-by-step guide on how to budget by paycheck, which is what I teach. So again, get that at budgetsmadeeasy.com/start to get started. Now, let's talk about a miscellaneous category. So, I teach budgeting, planning every single dollar on paper. I don't want you to actually take your checking account down to zero. And especially as you are learning and figuring out different amounts for things and things that you should probably include in your budget, but you didn't think about, this comes up a lot. So, a miscellaneous category is your buffer. Now, it could be separate. You could have a miscellaneous category and have the checking account buffer category, but I just use miscellaneous. So you don't want to take your checking account down to zero. And so you want to have a miscellaneous category on paper so that you have a little bit of a buffer. This also comes into play when you just have some random thing that doesn't really fit in a category. You don't need to spend a lot of time thinking about which category to put it in. And it's probably something small, maybe less than $20. And you don't need to waste a bunch of time trying to figure out which category to put it in. Put it in miscellaneous. Miscellaneous is like a catch-all. If you're not sure what it goes in, it's just something that you didn't think about, or maybe you forgot about. It is that extra buffer so that you don't have to take money from another category to make the budget work in the month, especially as you are learning and figuring things out. But I'll tell you, even with more experience, a miscellaneous category is still essential. Things are still going to come up. There's still going to be things that you haven't thought about or hadn't planned for. And a miscellaneous category is your budget buffer. It's your checking account buffer. It's your budget buffer. It helps you stick to your plan and keep things on track. So it doesn't have to be a lot. It could be $50 a payday. It could be $25 a payday. It could be $100 a payday. And it could be just $100 one time, and you kind of just keep rolling that over if you ended up not using it as your checking account buffer. Now, if you're not using it as your checking account buffer, it could just be a line item every single month. And it could just be like $50. It doesn't have to be a lot, but it needs to be something so that you have that barrier between you and quote unquote failure, because it's not a failure, but you know how mentally we think things that we failed when it doesn't go perfectly. That's what your miscellaneous category is for. That is for when things don't go perfectly and you need a little bit more wiggle room so you don't have to start moving things around. Now, it's also normal to have things come up that are more than the miscellaneous category, and you still have to move things around. But this is for kind of smaller things. And it's just mentally good to prepare, but also financially. And it's going to help you with that buffer of feeling like you failed when something comes up, because you haven't failed. Things are always going to come up. So this is like your human perfectionism buffer. I need to think of a good acronym or saying for it that I haven't thought of before, but it is your buffer for your budget so that you can actually stick to your budget, right? Excuse me. All right. So let me know in the comments, how much are you going to um, include as your miscellaneous category? And have you ever had a miscellaneous category? This is something that a lot of people don't think about, and they plan everything down to zero, but then when something comes up, then they're having to like take it out of other categories and move things around. It's stressful, and it keeps them from sending as much to debt as they had planned. All right. So let me know in the comments, do you have a miscellaneous category and how much are you including?